All right, we're going to go ahead and get started here. I'd like to welcome everybody to today's webinar. This is 5 ways to improve engagement with cross-channel marketing. Really greatly appreciate you taking some time out of your Wednesday to join us here for some tips and ideas on how you can make improvements to your marketing efforts and communicate with your customers more effectively. Today's webinar is brought to you by MessageGears and Zembula. And over the next 25 or 30 minutes, these two bearded gentlemen will be sharing their thoughts. I'm the one on the left. My name is Will Devlin. I'm the VP of Marketing for MessageGears, and joining me is my good friend Robert Haydock, CEO and co-founder of Zembula. Robert, say hello.
Hey, Will. Thanks for having me on the webinar. I'm excited to talk about interactive content.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for being here. So let's cover an idea of what we're going to be talking about today. And spoiler alert, you're going to get the 5 ways to improve email engagement right here off the bat, and we'll dive deeper, obviously, into each one of these. But I'm going to start by talking through a crawl, walk, run approach with the first three tips. So we'll start with the crawl, which is utilizing data to segment better and smarter. I think if you're on this call in 2019 here, you agree that batch and blast, send one message to everybody method of marketing is outdated, although I bet there's still a few of you that are here that probably practice that for various reasons still. So segmenting your audience, deciding how to best communicate with each segment, that's a great way to start getting out of that habit. And then we move on to walking, which is personalization that helps get you noticed. Basic personalization can go a long way, but really great personalization really helps you stand out because of how relevant you are to the end user. And then we'll run, which is scaling that personalization with dynamic content and using modular content blocks and templates. So at MessageGears, we work with super senders, which are big brands that send a ton of email and mobile messages, and there's a lot of moving parts. And they're running, and some of them are even sprinting, and so we'll share some of their ideas with you. And then Robert's going to dive into how you can invite interaction to increase brand affinity so that your content stands out and is really a joy to receive. And then we'll close talking about how to inject some psychological principles into your messaging for a boost in action, which I think is something that a lot of marketers in general are interested in figuring out how to do more of. So we'll leave some time at the end of this for some questions. And if you have a question throughout, you can submit it right here and go to webinar. And again, we'll reach them at the end, and we'll try to get to everybody's. So your brand needs to grab attention and stand above the noise. We all know that this is a challenge today. There are so many messages competing for our attention on various devices almost at all times. I mean, there's messages coming in right now. Half of you are probably got several screens pulled up. You got a phone you're looking at. It's really tough for people to stand out and for marketers to have their businesses stand out in a good way. Unfortunately, it's a little easy to stand out in a bad way. We have, as marketers, have said that increasing engagement is our #1 priority, and this certainly is true for us and me as a marketer, but I'm sure this is true for everybody. We did a study last year. We conducted a study with Ascend2, and increasing email engagement was far and away the #1 priority for email marketers. But it was also one of the top challenges to pull off. And we know that it's important. It's a clear #1 thing for us to do. We want to increase engagement. We want to be able to reach our subscribers and be meaningful, but we also struggle to effectively do it. And I think that's why we're all here today, right? We're sharing some ideas to trying to figure this out. So again, we'll start with this crawl, walk, run approach. The first way to increase engagement is really with better segmentation practices. Simply put, better segmentation equals better engagement. Now, it's not just the fact that you're segmenting your audience, because obviously you can create your different segments within your audience, your list, and then still batch and blast the hell out of them and put the same message to everybody. But the mere fact that you're looking at your customers and your subscribers differently in like-minded groups and buckets that share behaviors, share interests and demographics, those types of things, already helps you start connecting with them better. So you can start realizing that maybe I don't need to send a certain message to this segment over here, or maybe I should send a different type of message to this segment over here. So it's really basic, but you can start at least tailoring your strategy around the segments that you're creating. So first and foremost, you have to actually have some data to segment with. If you just have a list of email addresses, it's really going to be pretty hard to do anything with that. But you really need to be able to make use of some data. And if you don't have that today, or if you're not as sophisticated as you'd like to be, you really need to start mapping out your data needs. Think to the future of what you'd like to be doing, what you want to be doing, who are you envious of, what brands are pulling it off really well. And think about what you're going to need and how quickly you're going to able to use that data as well. Do you have, for example, are you a retailer with a lot of stores where you're going to want to know immediately when somebody buys something or not? Is that the type of, how fast are you going to need that data? Second here, you want to have your data in a single source of truth. I think a lot of companies are finally realizing that they need their customer data in one central place, not scattered around in different vendors and software systems and things that serve different purposes. Now, this is obviously something that marketing can't tackle alone. It really has to be a company-wide effort, but marketing can be the champions of why it's important and how it will help your business be more successful. And then finally, once you have that central source of truth, you really need to have technology that accesses it, right? So as we build our segments and we later start personalizing and getting into more advanced use cases, copies and disparate pieces of data just isn't going to work to help you get there. So, again, it's 2019. The tech is available out there to help you access your data wherever it lives in order to accomplish your goals. So once you have the data that you want and you're accessing it, we can actually then start segmenting in different ways. And here are some examples of some segments that we can create. Now, these can help you look at your audience and your customers in a different light, and again, help you think through what types of communications that each segment you're creating should be receiving. Start broad if you're not doing much here today, and then start getting more specific again as you get ideas and you start seeing what's successful or not. So I've created for this a fake outdoor retail brand. I actually used to run email and e-commerce programs for a large outdoor retail brand, so this isn't exactly like groundbreaking for me. This is a lot of what we actually did, right? But here are some ways that I can segment as a outdoor retail brand, how I can start segmenting my subscribers. I've got my entire subscriber list, and maybe perhaps I've historically just sent them a weekly email with a bunch of offers that are just generic. So I can think about perhaps maybe I can break the subscribers out based on where they live. Different people in different areas of the country require different communications. So it could be, I could maybe want to hold off on promoting something because of weather that's going on in the South. Certainly there's things that are happening, weather gets warmer in the South and they start doing activities outdoors a lot sooner than in the North and things like that. So thinking about where people live is an important way I could break people out. I could also think about how close somebody lives to one of my physical retail stores as an example. So this will help me understand their relationship with my company. If I send somebody a coupon or try to get them to buy something, are they going to take that and go to a store with it, or are they going to go to my website and buy? That's how they perceive my brand. That's how they understand and interact with me. I can also think about how active they are with me. When was the last time they bought something from me? And I can tailor my messaging, my incentives, and even my frequency of how often I try to reach out to them based off that information. And then, of course, I can look at their preferences, their browsing behavior, their past purchases, and start grouping them by interests. And this is one that I think is really easy for a lot of retailers to think about the benefits here. And again, this isn't this isn't earth-shattering either, but some people some of my customers might span all of these broad categories and might be interested in all of these, but in general, a lot of them are only going to be interested in one, maybe two. So that's, to me, the first step in increasing engagement. Segment better, and here's some, as an outdoor retail brand, this was some examples that I would use here. So the walk in our crawl, walk, run approach to increasing engagement is to inject better personalization into your messaging. Now, this is something that everybody's talked about for a long time. I don't think anybody that's listening is probably furiously scribbling down personalization like it's the first time you ever heard of that. But it's such a broad term, and it means different things to different people. And so we'll talk about the use cases I'm talking about here to help you increase engagement. Personalization is important. We find a million stats out there about how important it is. Here's two of them. Our friends at OneSpot in the relevancy group uncovered that organizations using email personalization generated 17% more revenue through their campaigns than the average marketer. And HubSpot did a study where personalized calls to action in general converted 202% better than the default calls to action like click here or learn more. I don't think we need stats like this to prove that personalization is important, though, right? We instinctively know that that's better because we all, as consumers ourselves, respond better to messaging that is personalized to us. There was a study that the University of Texas did, and they attributed our preference for personalized experiences to two key factors: our desire for control and the fact that we are overloaded with information, right? We like feeling like we're in control of how brands are communicating to us. And we also like the feeling that when they do communicate with us, it's something that we care about, because we don't have time to deal with trying to filter out all of the noise in the world. So thinking broadly about personalization beyond high first name, which is some people, that's what they think of when they think of personalization, but thinking about how we can use some examples here. You can use buyer history and behavior to personalize your messages. So what do they normally buy or browse? What's the last thing they bought? How should we promote different categories to them? Are they a loyalty member? All that good stuff. We could bleed that into location-based personalization. So if I'm, where are they in proximity to a store? Again, should I personalize based on something going on in their area? Are there any weather-related things that we should be aware of? And that's not just for promotional purposes. There's catastrophic flooding going on right now in the Midwest. Perhaps it's not the right time to send an email to anybody there. Particularly one that promotes different types of items that maybe just aren't relevant to them at this time. And then of course you can layer in language and send even more specific things from there. We often forget that language is something that you can personalize off of and is really important. So I'm back to my outdoors brand. I'm thinking about using my segments to really start personalizing and tailoring my promos. So I've got my standard general promo that I'm sending to folks that show interest in a lot of things, or maybe I don't have a lot of information about them. So I've got a main theme, some sale items, a vendor-sponsored item promo, and then some camping gear that I'm trying to get rid of. But if I know somebody is broadly interested in fishing, for example, and they're in that segment, maybe I send them a tailored version of this email. And there's a fishing event theme, there's some fishing products on sale, and then perhaps there's a link to some extra fishing gear. And then maybe I can then layer even in location-based information. And folks in the Midwest, like in Minnesota or Wisconsin and cold air areas, they're more likely to be ice fishing at certain times of year versus just getting on the boat and going out on the water. So this gives an extra layer of relevance and personalization that stands out in the inbox. And even if it doesn't drive that person to buy something right then, it's going to help them realize that we are important to them. We understand their lifestyle and their interests, and they're likely to stay subscribed and engaged in future emails. One of our customers at MessageGears, A6, does some great personalization in their emails for their Runkeeper app. So they factor in location and language information to personalize, and this again ensures that when people get their messages, they feel relevant and necessary, and it helps forge a connection with their users. And now we're running dynamic content, and utilizing it to really enhance personalization and relevance can make a huge difference in how you market to your customers. So this is information that's constantly moving and changing: weather, pricing, inventory, user actions, all that kind of stuff. So being able to utilize that effectively to personalize your messaging is really a game changer. It does require that fast access to data and some setup in your templates to pull it off effectively, but it's important, right? This gets your customers to connect with you faster. You can anchor your marketing in real time with real context that applies to them, and that immediately gets their attention. And then you're kind of letting the dynamic content do the work for you here. It makes it look like you're putting a lot of extra effort into making the message feel one-to-one, but it's really all sort of happening programmatically behind the scenes. Some examples of some dynamic content that you could be utilizing. This is, again, information that's moving fast, changing quickly. It's inventory and pricing data. It's time sales. It's weather info. It's customer information like where they are located or what their behaviors are, or if they've downloaded their app before, that kind of thing. So if I'm thinking through my outdoors brand again here, I've already tailored that personalized promo a little bit to the ice fishing audience. Well, now I'm layering in some content blocks utilizing dynamic elements. So I can give people a peek at the local weather forecast, either for that day or maybe for the weekend, and then also give them store hours for their local store. So I can, sort of push them to action, like it's going to be the right weather this weekend. Here's where you can go get the gear that you want. And I also noticed that this recipient, for example, wasn't a store credit card holder, and that's something that I want to push to them. So it wouldn't make sense to use valuable real estate to promote a credit card offer to somebody that's already got it. But in this case, I know that information. I can use that information to push a credit card offer to the folks that don't have it, and to push something else to the folks that do have it. And again, it's helping them, again, likely stay subscribed and engaged because they know that we're sending them things that are interesting to them. Expedia does a masterful job of building templates with modular content blocks in order to utilize dynamic content to their advantage. So if you think about all of the things that Expedia has to keep in order, you've got where you live, where you fly out of, how frequently do you travel, what's your purpose for your travel, what airlines and hotels you frequent, are you a loyalty member, and they've got to layer in flight and hotel pricing and inventory availability. And they do a great job of executing this sophistication at scale. I mean, we're talking about hundreds of millions of email and mobile messages a month. And as a user, when they get it done right, you don't even really notice it. You just appreciate that they send you emails you kind of look forward to and you scan through it. That's the sign of something really well done, is when it's so well tailored that it's not even noticeable how great it is. Of course, when you get it wrong, it's very noticeable. So, try to avoid that as well. Okay, I've talked long enough. I'm going to hand it over to Robert to walk through the last two ideas here to increase engagement, starting here with number 4. So Robert, take it away.
Thanks, Will. So the next one is interactive content. And this is what to do once the person opens the email. You've got the right content in front of them, or you've got the right type of content. How do you actually get them to take the next step? And interactive content, if you jump to the next slide, is really about getting them to take action and engage and participate in the content you've created. And this is usually done with tapping, swiping, or otherwise physically interacting with that piece of content. So here's an example. We're pulling from Victoria's Secret, but they had a scratch me and a way to exclusively reveal by outlining a heart. These are all ways that are really great to entertain your audience and are really memorable experiences. So let's take a quick look at the next slide and see the different types of interactive content that are out there. Our personal focus is on reveal at Zembula, but you can also use brackets, calculators, polls, maps, infographics. It's really anything you can do to draw their attention into the content instead of just statically viewing it. If we jump to the next slide, we can kind of look at what is happening here in the marketplace. Interactive content gets 3x conversion compared to static content. So it's offering a new way above and beyond your audience when combined with personalization techniques, audience segmentation, and dynamic content for them to really take that final step of getting to your website and purchasing. These are some stats that we pulled from an internal case study we did, but interactive content is 93% more effective, while static content is only 70% effective. I mean, it doesn't take rocket science. If you think about when you're drawn into actually doing something, you're much more likely to take action. And so this is like, how can we take email that extra step and get you to really click through and enjoy the content and take the next step towards purchasing. The last little stat is interactive content generates 4 to 5x more page views than static content. So if you're keeping them engaged and they're participating in that engagement, it really helps. If we jump to the next slide, this is an example from the Washington Post. It's a Game of Thrones season 7 roll up where you could just fully interact and figure out who was killed. And it was called the Massive Guide, called Valor Morgullius. I'm not sure if that's the right pronunciation, but it was how all the men died. So visitors could scroll through, they could click on things. This drove almost 30,000 shares. And so you can see this type of content, it's just electric and it's something that you really want to spend time with. If we jump to the next slide, let's look at why this works. The psychology behind interactive content is one of the most interesting things and one of the things that really connects with me and why I've been excited about this for the last 5 or 6 years and built a company around it. But if we go to the next slide, there's some core psychology factors, the IKEA effect, curiosity, and FOMO that we'll talk about in the next few slides. But what that does is that drives more sales for you and brand loyalty. One example I love to talk about is an investor in our company once said that he worked at YouTube. YouTube, if you are watching the video ads on YouTube and you click the skip button, you actually have better recall of the ad than if you watch the entire ad and then watched your video. So I think that's kind of a powerful tidbit to show you how much this really works. So let's jump into the next slide and take a quick look at FOMO. So this is the fear of missing out. Probably the most common one you've seen is the countdown timer. Creates urgency if done right and motivates people to want to click through to the promotion. But it is very important that your promotion is effective to make that fear of missing out really happen. It's particularly fast-paced, often viral word can come out of this where people are like, oh, there's a promotion, let me get to it quickly. Let's jump next into the IKEA effect. So this is one of my favorites. This is where when you build something, the IKEA effect is when you build something, you feel more connected to it. In the same way, when you interact with something digitally, you feel pride of ownership, and that makes you more likely to consider that interaction valuable. This example, Taco Bell shows you can start your own journey. So you can click on the journey's beginning point, and then that'll take you off into the website. This really gives you some skin in the game. The gamification lets you control your user path, and all those things drive that ownership effect from IKEA. The IKEA effect, kind of when you build your own thing. Let's jump to the next slide. The last one is curiosity. This is actually a Legoland campaign for Black Friday that they did with us at Zembula. What this does is you're enticing them. You're trying to give them something really drive their curiosity and drive action. It's arguably one of the strongest psychological triggers. Curiosity can be sparked easily with reveal content. It's a really powerful way to drive it. That experience would be in motion, and then they would click through and they'd land on an overlay on top of the Legoland website and be able to reveal the experience. It's a great way to grab exiting potential customers too on the website if they're leaving, to grab their attention with a reveal. So those are the 3 factors. And one of the major things I just want to get across is all these 3 pieces work together with the content and the graphics and creativity that you use as your design team. And then this just interactivity gives you that power to push it over the edge so you drive more users from your emails onto your website. Let's jump to the next slide and I'll hand it back over to Will.
Thank you, Robert. That was fantastic. Love it. All right. Well, so before we get to a few questions and wrap up here, let's kind of recap the things we've just talked about. So you can start increasing engagement by using data and segmenting your audience, and then you can start sending targeted, personalized communications to them. Start with 1 or 2 things, and go from there. Right? Start small, go up from there, and then you can start getting really sophisticated, utilizing some dynamic content to scale relevance and personalization from there, and then layer in interactive elements to increase affinity and engagement, and then start injecting some psychological principles into your campaigns to spark action. Right? And I think there were some great examples that Robert shared there. Follow that roadmap, and you're on your way to sending better messages and marketing campaigns. A quick word before questions here about our companies, just as we get into the final slide here. So MessageGears is a cross-channel messaging platform built for today's enterprise. So we help B2C super senders like Expedia, Chick-fil-A, and Ebates easily and seamlessly orchestrate sophisticated campaigns across email and mobile channels. We are not like your traditional marketing cloud, so we can get even the most complex programs up and running very quickly and often more economically than legacy ESPs. So we'd love for you to bring us your toughest program so we can show you the power of our platform in action. So we're at MessageGears.com. And Robert, you want to talk about this?
So Zembula is a platform that helps businesses get more people from their emails directly to their buying pages with interactive content. Our interactive content, it's fun, it's engaging, it gets you closer to winning over every single customer. These are easy to create experiences. Our platform is about simplifying the process because we know generating a lot of different content can be hard, and so we take care of all the complexity to make it simple for you. They can be deployed through email, exit intent overlays, and we really give you the maximum flexibility when it comes to engagement. Hand it back over to you, Will.
All right, thank you. So we do have a couple minutes here without going too far over. I see a question in here. If you have your question here and you didn't type it in, go ahead and type it in. One question that did come in about will you get the deck after the webinar? Yes, you will. You'll get the recording here, and we'll also send the deck out. So don't worry about I probably should have made that clear up front in case a few of you were like furiously trying to do screenshots and everything, but you will get this deck. Another question here, looks like for Robert, you're probably best for this one. With interactive content, I worry about seeming repetitive or gimmicky, so do you have any tips for keeping that sort of content fresh and interesting?
Sure, absolutely. This is a common question we get. One of the things to think about with interactive content is it's the same as any other type of static image or ad where you want to change up the imagery constantly. So we think of our interactive content builder as kind of the Chrome for your experience, much like the YouTube player is the Chrome for watching a video, but every video is different. That's the same way we look at interactive content. So changing why you want to use it. Maybe it's a promotion one time, maybe it's brand education another time. There are great ways to add a lot of variety, and really the interaction lives beyond into the creativity. So hopefully that helps. If you have further questions about it, just throw them in there, and I'm happy to answer them.
That's great. Another one here about personalization being a huge challenge. Our data is a mess, spread out and in different places. So how do we personalize some of the things like you showed off here? I mentioned, I'll take this one. I mentioned earlier about the drive for consolidating into a central database and having one source of truth. And I also mentioned too, like that is something that marketing can't do themselves. By the way, I think a lot of marketing teams think, okay, well, I'll go get this marketing cloud and they'll host data for me, and that's what I need. But really, like even then, it's hosting a copy of data outside of where all the other customer information for your company lives. And so it is a copy and it's incomplete. So I think, again, marketing being the champion of centralizing that data into one place is really important. And, we can't do it alone as marketers, right? You really have to it's a full company buy-in, a full shift in how your company interacts. But hopefully that helps a little bit. A good question that just came in about personalization being intrusive, and Robert, you and I could probably both have a comment on this one, but is at what point does personalization become intrusive. And I think that is a question that we hear a lot about, like, where is the line between creepy and effective? And again, I go back to, I think it's good or great utilization of personalization is hardly even noticed. And so if somebody's getting something from you and it's got super detailed information about, oh, we saw you were over at this store today. Hope it was a great experience. You talked to this person or whatever. That's certainly getting over the line a little bit, I would think. But if you're really, taking what they know, I think I speak from my personal experience, like Amazon. I shop on Amazon. If I'm not logged in, I kind of notice that I'm not logged in because I'm not seeing personalized recommendations based on users that bought what you just bought also bought this, and so it gets I actually prefer to be logged in, so I get those. So there is a line. Robert, you have any thoughts on how much is too much?
Yeah, I agree with you there. It's just the level of detail, and you don't want to get too detailed about store location and where exactly you visited. But when it's about content you're interested in, like it might be a product or something you saw previously, I think that's a perfect level. I mean, who doesn't want to see the right products that they're interested in versus, seeing something random that might be irrelevant to them?
Yeah. We have a couple others here, but we're running a little bit over what we want to. So if you submitted a question and we didn't get to it, rest assured that we'll reach out to you via email. Appreciate those that came in. And I just want to thank everybody. So on behalf of on behalf of Robert and our friends at Zembula, I'm Will Devlin again. I'm with MessageGears. I want to thank you guys for joining us. We will send a follow-up email with the recording and the slides from today. We'll probably get that out to you tomorrow. And I hope that anybody that attended today found some value here and came away with some ideas. Send us those success stories if you start implementing these ideas and seeing lift. Anyway, thanks again, and we hope everybody has a great rest of your day.